Ahoj všichni, já jsem Rožík a vítám vás opět u dalšího videa ze hry The Hunter Call of the Wild. Tohleto to natáčím hnedka po díle z Quattrocolinas, protože jsem dostal jako chuť si trošičku víc zahrát Huntera a jelikož tam už jsem dokončil mise, tak jsem se posunul tu. Ale měl jsem vyplet natáčení a jenom co jsem sem přistál, tak mi tu začal týpek, co mě tu bude provázet, kecat o tom, co mám udělat. Chce něco z té boudy donést někam. Nevím kam, jdem se do toho rovnou pustit, žádné okecávání, prostě jdeme do toho po hlavě takzvaně. No daleko možná ne. Pěšky 600 metrů je v pohodě, ale co ty výškové metry? Tam něco je, tam něco je, tam něco je, co to je? Nazdar! Dvojka, jednička, jednička. Jednička, jednička. Tak jo, jdu tam.
You found the tower. There's hopefully a free shelf inside, somewhere you can stash the supplies. Oh, you should hang on to a couple of the flyers though.
Jaké letáky, o čem to mluví? A proč mám lézt až nahoru? Ale mají tu hezké rozhledny. Ale stejně nejhezčí rozhledny jsou na... sakra, jak se to jmenuje? Revontuly. Nevím, nechci nikoho naštvat, takže na té mapě z Finska.
Fantastic. That tower should have everything it needs now. How's the view from up there?
Strašný, hrozný.
It's
Tam
great
něco
to
je.
have a hunter like yourself around. I'm grateful for your help with the supplies. I can't wait to hear your Silver Ridge hunting stories. Things have been quiet here recently. But with a hunter of your caliber on the reserve, we're going to show folks that this is still the best place in the Rockies to hunt. Plus, you're not the only one working with us. We were able to convince Remy Warren to visit, and he's been logging his solo hunts out here for a week or so.
Ale já jsem Remy
He's got a
Warden.
pretty decent following online.
Vždy mám ten oblek
So
na sobě.
hopefully he's impressed with the reserve. When I proposed using social media to promote the reserve, the board were a little hesitant. But they're giving us a chance to try something new, and I'm sure it'll be worth it.
A nebo se jenom ten oblek tak jmenuje, ale to je jedno. Nevím, o čem mluvil.
So I suppose you were wondering why I wanted you to grab the flyers, right? There are people who come out here just to visit the lake. I'm fine with people standing on the shore, but until we know exactly what's going on, we need to keep people out of it. I had these flyers made up so we can pin them to our bulletin boards. There's a trail that leads straight to the lake, so I'd like you to pin up one of these flyers at the trailhead. Now, the flyers cover the basics: heavy metals, mining waste, and why to avoid diving in. It's not much, but until we know more, it's all we have. The lake is beautiful, and it's always pulled in visitors. It still looks the same as it ever did. Maybe even better, now that it's calm and peaceful. But now, I can't look at it without seeing what it did to my dad, or what it's doing to the reserve. People discover that we have one contaminated lake and assume that the reserve isn't worth visiting anymore. So far, the local wildlife seems okay, but our bookings for visitors, and especially hunters, have dried up. I have a few contingency plans that I want to try out. I'm a little nervous, though, as our board can be a little conservative. And if my ideas don't involve pulling in hunters, it can be really tricky to get them on board. It was easier to convince the board to invite yourself and Remy into the reserve, given that you're both hunters with good reputations. I'm glad you said yes.
Tak jo, takže mise na Silveru se budou týkat kontaminace prostředí. Asi. To bude zajímavé. Pokud jsou tu ty mise udělané dobře. Ale ne. Ono za chvilku přijde Rancho del Arroyo. Za dlouho přijde Rancho. Není Rancho hnedka po tomhle? Ne. To je Avaroa je potom. A pak Rancho. A pak Mississippi. Rancho proletím fakt asi za jeden den.
Tracks are my go-to source for insight into animals in the reserve. Species, number, mood. You can learn a lot about them before you've ever spotted anything.
Aha, to bylo na
One
stopy.
down,
Okay.
one to go. Keep following the trail to the lake.
A mně se nechce roznášet letáky.
Take a look at the water. If I hadn't told you, would you suspect that the lake was dangerous?
Jo. Co když tam budou zombie bobři?
We might not be able to monitor the lake 24/7, but at least now people have been warned. Thanks for taking care of that. It's such a strange feeling to be publicizing the very issue that is hurting us at the moment. I know it's the responsible thing to do, but it still feels slightly like self-sabotage. Our summer season has already started, and normally this whole area would be covered with hikers. I've only seen a handful of people in the reserve recently. I'm sure that things will pick up eventually. But every day, I'm reminded that my dad was the major driving force behind this place. It's just bad timing, I suppose. We'd had some other issues with one of the board members, but that's in the past. The best thing to do is to keep pushing forward. I've got some big plans to help turn things around. Who knows? Maybe we'll have this place at full strength by the time my dad gets back in the saddle.
Tak jo.
I'm talking a lot about family stuff, aren't I? I suppose work and family are the same thing for me, you know? I've been watching my dad do this job since I was a kid. Let's change the subject, shall we? I've got a job that I'd like you to take care of. The big plans I mentioned before? One of these plans is a little passion project of mine. We're gonna need some gear. Rappelling gear, actually. I have stashed a few bags at one of the nearby outposts, and I'd like you to head over there and pick them up, when you can. I've been doing adventure sports for about 10 years or so now. It started with bouldering and rock climbing while I was on a high school trip. Last year, I got an accreditation as an instructor, and I was planning on teaching classes. When my dad got ill, I put it on the back burner. But now, I think we have a good opportunity to commit to it. Unfortunately, I'm a little too busy to teach classes just now. But one of my base jumping friends, Sammy, took the same course as me, so she's gonna lead the class instead.
Já ho neposlouchal, já jsem soustředěný na svého méďu. Ulovil jsem si 7čkového medvěda. Oni teďkom nedávno do hry přidali nové zaměřovače, asi si je pořídím, chtěl bych vědět, jak se s nima hraje. Jestli je tam nějaký rozdíl. Bude to gold, tmavá, úžasné. Nevím, kam jsem ho trefil, ale pravděpodobně plíce. No a teďkom kilák a půl tam. Nemám tam chajdaloupku. Mám.
The gear is in here. I packed it into a couple of backpacks. It shouldn't be too heavy.
No jasně, když někdo řekne, že by to nemělo být moc těžké, tak to je na urvání Tyhle. Jasné.
You got everything? There's a good rock face nearby that Sammy can use to teach her beginners. If I recall correctly, you also have some mountain climbing experience. I get it.
Ne,
Those
nemám.
mountain goats aren't easy to catch. There's some good anchoring points at the top of the rock face. If you can get those ropes nice and secure, it'll save Sammy some time and help the class.
Ach jo. Není tam chajdaloupka? Není.
Truth be told, I've wanted to start an extreme sports group here for a long time, but the old chairman of the board pushed back against anything that wasn't hunting. He was very old-fashioned, though. The patriarch of the Simpkins Electronics Empire. He even forced his vegan animal rights activist son, Timothy, to come with him on hunting trips to Africa. Accused the activist of brainwashing his son. The family reputation around here dropped quite dramatically when my dad caught Timothy drinking and dealing drugs inside the reserve. Simpkins actually used his power on the board to keep my dad quiet. But the next time my dad caught Tim in the reserve, he wasn't just dealing drugs. He had been poaching. Dad called it in without even telling Simpkins Sr. Of course, he was furious. Tried to get my dad fired, actually. But all credit to the board. They stuck with my old man. All these changes I want to make will hopefully account for the loss of the Simpkins' money and influence. This is just the start, too. I'm proposing snowboarding and extreme skiing for the winter. I've got some friends who I'd love to invite over to shoot some videos. Could be fun, don't you think? Anyway, if the rappelling goes well and makes a little money, I think the old folks on the board will start to come around.
Já jsem asi vážně divný člověk. Moji pozornost v tom textu upoutal drogy a alkohol. To je super. Já jsem ho jinak vůbec neposlouchal. No jo, co se dá dělat. Jak se mám jako vylézt? Doufám, že si tu budu moct ulovit diamantovou pumu. Tak.
That looks great. I doubt I could have done a better job myself. Don't let the ropes down. We don't need them getting all tangled up. I really appreciate your help with this one. It's been an uphill battle to get to this point, and I'm disappointed that I can't be there to run the classes myself. If I'm being honest, I have a lot invested in the classes going well. There's still some people on the board who are friends with the old chairman, and it seems pretty clear that they don't like me proposing new ideas. Anyway, I'll let Sammy know that we're good to go. I trust her to take care of it.
Tak jo. Co dál? Pojď nějaký lov, ale ten typek vypadá, že úplně na lov není.
Hey, so listen. There might be a situation going on at the moment and I could really use your help to check it out.
Aha, už jdu.
It's not just gold and silver mining that took place out here. Even more recently, there was a working uranium mine in the area.
No tak to je perfektní.
When the reserve was established, we took responsibility for keeping it safe. Anyway, the old uranium mine is very rarely a problem. But recently, it appears that one of our neighbors, a guy I went to school with actually, has been spotted camping out around the mine. His name's Bobby Joe Jefferson. He's normally just a
Jo, to zní jako někdo, kdo by se chtěl jako držet tu uranu.
He makes the deer and turkeys extra skittish, so the hunters hate him. Can you head over to the mine and see what's going on? He's allowed to hike and camp there, but I don't want him going anywhere near the entrance itself.
No co, si chce odnést trochu uranu? Ať má doma čím topit, ne? Vždyť přece štěpení uranu nemůže být tak těžké. Fotopast.
Okay, first things first. Let's make sure that the mine itself is still secure. A trail camera? I've used these for work and for hunting before. This one shouldn't be here, though. We don't want hunters so close to the mine. Grab the camera. Another trail camera. Bobby Joe doesn't have a permit to hunt here. Is he poaching?
Ne, spíš tady v tom něco bude.
That's gotta be a good sign. Hopefully that's the last one. Pick him up and I'll put him in our lost and found when I can take him from you. I don't really understand what's going on with the cameras, but at least the entrance is secure. Let's go find his camp, shall we? It was actually Remy that called this one in. He doesn't know who Bobby Joe is, but I knew who it was as soon as Remy described him.
Ty fotopasti tu nebyly jen tak pro srandu králíkům. Já si myslím, že tady bude nějaké velké zvíře, které je postihle radiací. A nebo mám jenom moc sci-fi mozek, kdo ví. Je, skála. Vapity! Zmetek, rychlej. Trojka. Oni jsou až do pětky jsou. Tak to ten ani nestojí za námahu. Ne. Tady totiž nikdy nikdo není. Co to sakra je? Aha.
That's not good news. Binoculars. Maybe he was hunting. Some snacks? Not enough to last a long trip, though. I'm seeing a pretty worrying pattern here. Take a look in the tent. That's our sign. Pick it up, would you?
Aha, a co je to za?
A journal. Maybe this will show us why he's out here. Secret uranium mining. Government conspiracy? I'll be honest. I never credited Bobby Joe with this much imagination in high school. Replant the sign, and we're done here for now. You know what makes this extra weird? He actually has done some detective work. Enough to convince himself to camp here.
Tak v tom případě tam asi žádné velké zvíře nebude. Spíš jenom ten týpek, co tady stanoval, tak byl posedlý tím, že tady někdo stále těží uran a ty fotopasti byly z nějakého důvodu na extrémně viditelných místech, asi z důvodu, aby zachytil lidi, co sem chodí. Kdo ví?
The sign's back up? Great. This mine has never been a problem before, but let's not take any chances. Me and my dad have been dealing with Bobby Joe for years. but this is new. I know he's a nuisance, but I always felt sorry for him. He had a pretty tough upbringing. I don't want to call the police, but I have to. He's armed and known for making poor choices.
Tak jo. Dokončí úkol nebezpečná reakce. Další achievement. To je za dnešek už 3. To je dobrý. Co tu máš dál?
It would appear that it's not just the neighbors that are making questionable calls today. Sometimes folks from the city will drive out here to get away from work or their personal lives or whatever happens to be bothering them. The problem is that sometimes, quite often actually, people wander into the wilderness without a clue of how to survive if things go wrong. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course. And based on a couple of phone calls I've had from the hospital today, I think that someone has made a mess and could use some help.
Diamantový medvěd. Medvědi tu jsou tu.
But I need to coordinate with the police on this Bobby Joe thing. And you're already really close by.
Ne, nejsem.
Can you head over to the campgrounds nearby and check in on them?
Ne.
The phone calls were sporadic at best. As far as I can tell, this professional yoga and meditation expert has led a group of accountants from Denver into the wilderness on some sort of spiritual retreat. She took their cell phones away from them and had them eating wild flowers and berries. Some of them got sick and have gone directly to the hospital. I know that we're not the reason why this happened, but it could look very bad for us if anyone gets seriously hurt. I'd appreciate if you'd hustle and check it out.
Hezký kemp.
That's weird. I expected a lot more activity here. They said they were bringing 20 people. Where is everyone?
Už tu asi dlouho nejsou, když tu prorůstá tráva.
She goes by Jem Botten. Can you hear the phones ringing? I guess we know where she hid them then. The accountants have left. I'm going to send someone to make sure they got back to their cars safely. This is an absolute disaster. A bunch of poisoned accountants and a lone woman climbing a non-specific mountain. Next time someone tries to run a retreat out here, I'm gonna make them hire a professional guide. She's expecting the others to meet her at the top of a mountain? Which one? This is exactly the sort of thing I find myself fighting uphill against. It's hard to get going when stuff like this keeps...
Proč furt zvoní ten telefon?
First things first. We need to figure out where Bodden's gone. I'll try to reach some of the accountants back at the hospital. Maybe they can help. I get the distinct feeling that she hasn't packed hiking boots or proper equipment for a climb. Maybe she'll turn back soon. I'll let you know if I hear anything, okay?
Tak jo, já budu čekat. Medvědi nevědí. To bude další achievement.
Today continues to throw up challenges for us. I have another job for you, and this one is urgent.
Jestli tam není diamantový medvěd, tak nechci.
From one of our neighbors, Norman, asking if we'd seen his dad, a longtime friend of the reserve. Apparently he's gone missing and he's taken all the family camping supplies with him. Around the same time, 2 hikers reported to us that they spotted a single old man laden down with gear, heading into a part of the reserve that is known for its bears. When they asked him if he needed any help, he politely declined and kept walking. Their description matches old Ted perfectly. Short white hair, green rain slicker, and brown leather boots. No gun. I'm trying to get a hold of Norman, but he said that he'd make some more calls just in case Teddy's gone to visit friends. I'm just getting his voicemail at the moment. While I sort this out, can you head over to where the hikers saw him and try to follow old Teddy's trail? He knows his way around here, so I have no idea why he'd wander into bear country.
Chtěl umřít? To je jako jediná věc, co mě napadá. Já tu nemám odemknutou chajda loupku. No tak si ji aspoň odemknu. Tak a teď najít toho mrtvého pána, který šel za medvědy. Bez tak se jenom tahá z medvědící.
You found where the hikers spotted him. That's good news. Listen, I got a hold of Norman and he's on his way out here. But he's a couple of hours drive away. I told him that we were looking for his dad. Norman's really worried. He thinks that Ted has had a breakdown. Ted's wife, Jeannie, died a couple of weeks ago, and since the funeral, Ted hasn't been himself. The family were giving him as much space as they could, but now they're worried that he's fully isolated himself and he's made some bad decisions that have led him here. Norman took a trip to visit him, but when he arrived, Ted was gone and so was his car. Norman remembers his dad saying that he proposed to Jeannie during a trip to Silver Ridge Peaks 45 years ago.
Aww.
That whole region is a beautiful valley, but nobody goes out there unarmed while the bears are roaming around. It might be a long shot, but can you gear up with whatever you need and head into bear country as soon as possible? If Ted's looking for where he proposed almost a half a century ago, I just hope he finds it before the bears find him. I'll mark the beauty spot on your GPS. Be careful in those parts. Keep your rifle handy at all times.
Já tu zbraň mám u sebe pořád, hele. V klidu. Zatím žádný medvěd. Je to dobrý. Nikde... Co tu dělal strom? Ten tu předtím nebyl. Co to je?
This place has been torn apart. There's no blood, no body. He's left his pack here, though. He must be traveling light, but we can't wait for him to come back to camp. The bear could still be around.
Postupuju dál.
This is the beauty spot. But he's gone. There's no sign of an encounter. But look, Ted was definitely here.
Podle čeho soudíš? Aha, stopy. To je medvěd, jo, aha, toto.
Ted and Jeannie, 1978. I can't even imagine what's going through his head at the moment. My dad and I used to talk about men who would seek their solace in nature. He told me that if he didn't have my mom or me around, he'd eventually have just started living out here. I didn't believe him at first, but as I've grown older, it makes more sense to me. He's running from the pain he's feeling. Out there, he doesn't need to think about anyone or anything else. He can just be alone. Norman will be here soon. I told him that his visit will include a trip to bear country, so he's got a rifle to protect himself. I'll point him to his dad's old camp for now. It makes most sense for that to be where Ted will come back to whenever he's ready. There's no tracks for you to follow, and while I don't like the idea of him wandering around, Ted clearly wants to be alone out here.
Dokončí misi, medvědi nevědí. OK. Tak co tu máš dál? Zas budu čekat. To byl trapný úkol.
I might have a lead on our missing yoga instructor. Sammy was driving home after the rappelling lesson, and she heard something that could be Ms. Bodden. She had pulled over to look under the hood of her car, and she swears she heard a scream from the woods nearby. And I asked her if it could have been an animal noise, but she seemed pretty insistent that it was a woman's scream. I know it's nothing solid to go on, but it could be what leads us to her. Can you check it out? I'll mark the spot on your GPS.
Tak označuju a já jdu. Proč je to všechno tak strašně Aha, to není tak daleko. Jsem zvědavý, co se tu bude dít. Možná tu bude legendární média. Bylo by to fajn. Co to sakra bylo?
Can you hear that? It's like a horn or something.
No slyším to.
There, on the ground. An air horn app. I've heard of people trying to scare away bears and cougars with real-life air horns. Personally, I've never really trusted using sound to scare off a bear, not permanently at least. Well, that's the contact number I had for her. Cell phone service can be really poor out there, though. Still, she was here. Check out the bear markings on that tree.
Kde? Aha.
There's no sign of her, is there? If she tried to hide from a bear up a tree, she found out pretty fast that bears are great climbers. Maybe she threw the water bottle in her phone to give herself a chance to escape. Are there any more clues?
Medvěd.
Be careful.
Kde? Kde máš medvěda? Kde? Aha, tady. No, teď to je samice. Já ji mám zastřelit? No já nechci, teď to je samice.
I'm sorry to send you in there, my friend. I know you can handle a black bear, but that doesn't make it okay. Dad would never have put his people in this position. I have to be smarter. It just seems like every problem lands at once, you know? I'm trying to improve the reserve, but things keep getting in the way. Look, I'm really grateful that you've been able to help me out. If it had been me out there, things could have gone a lot worse. The important thing is Baden's safety, right? Are there any signs of where she went?
Tady nikde nic není. Já vlastně vůbec nevím, co hledám. Ha? Stopy.
Those look like fresh footprints. She made it out of there, heading west. Still, now she has no phone and no water bottle. Let me look at the map and I'll come up with a game plan. Okay, got it. Not far from where you are, we have the old funicular railway. It's pretty big, and it's a tourist attraction. If Baden sees it, then maybe she'll head towards it to look for help. At the bottom of the track, there's an old shed that she could try to shelter close to. It's not much, but it's a start. Given how badly things have gone for her so far, I can only hope that she's not still planning to climb a mountain.
Ona šla tam a oni si myslí, že bude tu?
See if they can't help us work out where her head is at.
Tak to je pěkně stupidní blbost. Přece když jde člověk tam, tak se z ničeho nic neotočí a nepůjde zpátky, odkud přišel. I když jako možná by to smysl dávalo, ale když utíkala na jih, tak proč by z ničeho nic šla na západ? O tomhle ani nevím, že to tu je. Já vím o tom, co je nahoře. Ale ne tady dole, tu jsem nikdy nebyl.
What the hell has happened here? It looks like the bears have been using the shed as a latrine and a scratching post. I'm meant to be taking a potential investor to tour the reserve this week. She cannot see this. Baden's not here. There's no sign of her. And I still can't get through to the accountants. They've left the hospital and don't have their cell phones. Can you put the shed back together and tidy things up a bit? I hate to do this, but there's no way I'm gonna make it out there before the tour.
No jasné. Jasně, že to tu budu zase dávat dokupy já.
It might be from a bear, but why would they come here?
Teplo, sucho. To je všechno, co mě napadá.
I don't see bears tearing that off. Thanks. It's probably still gonna smell pretty bad, but at least it's not covered in bear scat. Bears tend to stay away from humans, and we never kept anything that would attract them inside that shed. Are there any tracks nearby? The place looked fine when I was here last week. That's unexpected. The public don't tend to drive to the funicular, and if it was one of the staff, they'd use quad bikes. This looks like it was left by a car or a truck. I think someone has vandalized our property. It doesn't make a lot of sense, though. Why would anyone come all the way out here to do this? Maybe bored teenagers? I pulled some stupid pranks when I was young, but none involved ferrying around a bunch of bear scat. Given that this has happened to the shed, I'm a little worried about the railway itself. It's a unique tourist site, over 100 years old. It leads all the way up to Prosperity, the reserve's ghost town. It used to be home to the miners who came out here during the Silver Rush. I think it's a little creepy, but tourists like it. Would you check the track out, please? I would feel a lot better knowing it's okay.
Tak jo, tady tuhleto misi si nechám už na příští díl. Že si myslím, že pro dnešní díl to tady bude stačit. už hraju strašně dlouho, vůbec mi to nepřijde, ale docela mě to tu baví. Ale abych neudělal celé mise za jeden díl, tak to tu ukončím a v příštím díle budu pokračovat tady na tomto místě. Takže děkuji, že jste to sledovali, jestli se vám video líbilo, klidně můžete dát like, ta ikonka je nějaká jiná. Vidíme se někdy příště, mějte se fajn.